Being black in law enforcement means walking a line between duty and identity. It means serving the community while also striving for justice and understanding. This Black History Month, members of the Chesterfield County Sheriff's Office share their stories, not just as a deputy, but as a black person committed to making a difference. Because representation matters. Because trust matters. Because the future of law enforcement includes all of us.
Deputy Govine, been with the county for 6 years. I have a passion to serve. I have a lot of history with the military, was more of a traditional background. Fun fact about myself is I am a first generation law enforcement. So born in North Carolina, raised in New York my whole life, just transitioned down to Virginia with family. So Virginia's new, and also fun fact, I didn't really know much about a sheriff's office, so it was very interesting to see that there's different law enforcement agencies besides police. I would say what inspired me to be in law enforcement was my service in the military, in the Army. When I get out the Army, I tried different jobs that were more customer service based, but I missed that type of rank structure, just structure in general. So I didn't want to be back in the military, but I wanted something similar to that. And law enforcement kind of fit what I was looking for, you know, with the uniforms, the brotherhood, sisterhood, kind of a sense of purpose. But I didn't really have much of a role model in law enforcement, you know, so it was just new. Like I said before, I'm first generation law enforcement, so I'm kind of just starting off fresh. So I would say being in the military was kind of like my motivation to kind of find something that was similar to that, which is what kind of inspired me to be where I am today. There has been a big shift in, you know, a lot of black officers are now taking leadership roles, which you haven't seen before, at least in Chesterfield County Sheriff's Office. You know, we have the first black major, Eric Jones. That was a big milestone for us. The changing of our hair policy to accommodate black officers that want to, you know, have their hair locked or braids, which was a big improvement. Because when I first came to the Sheriff's Office, you know, it was more of a, I would say it was more of a loose standard. Like there wasn't really like a standard or a policy that says you can't have braids, but it was kind of like frowned upon. I think we're moving in the right direction now, and I think as long as it still looks presentable in uniform, right? I don't see why it's an issue, and I think the Sheriff's Office has really taken a leap forward in doing that, which is allowing more officers to express themselves. And how I try to balance my identity and my identity as in law enforcement is my first experience with law enforcement wasn't the best. My first experience with law enforcement was in New York. My dad was arrested right in front of my face. I was like 5 years old, you know, and seeing them arrest my dad, that was literally the first image I had of law enforcement. The second image I had of law enforcement was when I was walking home from school in New York, and I got jumped by three guys that was walking across from the opposite side of the road, and NYPD just kind of just drove right past, and like they stopped, they literally watched me getting jumped and just kept going. And I always told myself that if I ever wanted to be in law enforcement, that I would be better than that. But at the same time, you have to treat everybody equally. You know, I can't favor one race over the next. Everyone has to be treated the same, but I feel like it's a lot of tension when it comes to law enforcement in the black community because, especially during 2020, it was a big uprise. So you try to be tactful what you say and what you do. How I try to stay true to myself. I talk. I don't feel like because I'm in uniform and I'm wearing a badge that I'm better than everyone else. So if I ever get a chance, I talk with the youth when I was in civil process, and they would come to my car. I always carry around like this. Miles Morales was like my favorite Marvel character. One of the first Black Spider-Man. Was really cool. So I used to carry like around. That was like my little signature thing, a little plush toy of Miles Morales. And I remember I was serving a paper at Cine Bistro in Chester, and there was a black family that was going to the movie theater, and I pulled up, and they were like, "Oh wow," So I talked to the family. They weren't involved at all. They just kind of just talking to me because I always get approached a lot, especially with my hair and stuff like that. So it was a good conversation. And I remember they had a little young child there, so I went to my car and gave him the black Miles Morales plush toy. And I think, who knows, that could have been his first experience of law enforcement, I don't know. But I think I left a lasting impression on him, being like, okay, wow, I guess law enforcement isn't as bad as you think it is. I would say despite how law enforcement was kind of displayed to me growing up, I was able to kind of change that and make it for the better, So that's how I feel like I can try to balance both, just being human, not going too far into favoring one race over the next. I treat everybody the same, but I know when it comes to dealing with like the black community, I'm black myself, so if I'm stopped out without uniform, I may be treated differently than someone else, so I try to keep that in mind when I interact with the public. Some advice I would give is stay true to yourself, and don't believe what people say in regards to law enforcement. I feel like you can make the change that is necessary for the job. If you feel like law enforcement is not where it needs to be and you have good ideas, take that leap and try it out. Never hurts to try. I think black officers in law enforcement has definitely came a long way, and then what it was in the past. And I think if we just keep trying to build off that, build off the legacy of black officers that have kind of paved the way for us, I think that we can definitely make an impact. I was very skeptical about law enforcement myself, because I always was criticized for being in law enforcement from a lot of family members, cut me off because I was in law enforcement. But you can't let that kind of scare you from doing what you want to do. If you want a career in law enforcement, because you feel like you can make a difference, then I just go for it. That's how I feel that I represent, Black History Month, or just being me, being his uniform, from all the generations of hardship that we had, to now is a big change. So that's why I feel like I've been doing my part.